Shields up, Iron Breakers. Rurikhan here coming at you with another video. Today I have a very special guest. He's actually my roommate in Monster Hunter Rise, and that is Arekkz. How you doing, Arekkz?
I'm good, I'm good. How about you? Thank you for inviting me over.
I am doing fantastic. So the reason I'm calling you my roommate is because recently in one of your videos, I remember you specifically saying, I've been living in the training room, and I've been like just sitting right next to you, essentially doing the exact same thing.
It's so true, man. I'm just like, what does the world look like out there? What is the Frost Islands? What is Kimura Village?
We don't even know anymore because all we see in front of us is Mecha Tetranodon just basically experimenting with all of the different weapons. It's been completely crazy. But before we go too deep into Rise, I just wanted to ask, have you been playing anything else besides Monster Hunter Rise recently? Or is it just mostly Monster Hunter Rise?
I think it has literally been, I was just trying to think. I was just looking at it. I was like, I watched some announcements the other day for some things that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, I think 100% I've just been playing... right. Like, there's just literally no time for anything else right now. It's crazy because I'm just, between making all the videos and then just like, and that's the thing. I think sometimes people forget, but as well as like creating content, like we just love the series. So when I'm not making videos, I'm just like, oh, now I can actually play the game for myself.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like we work on the game, and then on top of it, we play the game. And I've actually been introducing a new friend of mine to the game as well, which is always one of those magical moments. Like. And then they disappoint you because they pick longsword as their main weapon.
Hey, at least they didn't pick like heavy bowgun.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm sorry, bowgun users, but you know what? I'm just like, look, right. This is, and everyone that's a bowgun user is be like, how dare you? But I'm just like, look, when you have a game, it's like, let me paint a picture for you. There's a wall of 14 incredible looking weapons. You've got a giant hammer, got a crazy hunting horn, you've got an explosive lance, or you got a pea shooter. They're like, yep, I'm gonna take the pea shooter. It's like, why?
You can have all of these amazing weapons, or you can have this gun.
Exactly. I'm just like, nope, that's not me. That's not me.
So one of the first things that I got to ask you, in one of your interviews, I remember this very distinctly. You asked the Monster Hunter team if there were going to be beards.
They like
Where are my beards, Arekkz?
I was. You know what? Right now, I look back at that interview and I'm like, you know what? They clearly gave me the political answer because they were like, they specifically said in the translation it was like, oh yeah, there won't be as many options as World, but I think you'll be happy. I mean, like, how can you say to me, looking at me with a beard this big and knowing the beard you have in the game, how can you say I think you'll be happy? Say you did me dirty, man. Like, I respect you. You made a fantastic game, my favorite Monster Hunter game ever. But how could you do this to me? And then, to add insult to injury, they're like, oh, we'll release some DLC packs and give you more hairstyles. How about more beards? Like, where's that? I'll pay £10 for a beard. I'll pay I'll pay retail price of a game just so I can have a beard, please.
Oh my God. You also like running around without your helmet. If you could have the beard, right? You would like running around without the helmet. Yeah. I'm the same thing. I usually run around without the helmet because I like my character to have a big beard, bigger than mine even. But, it just, I was very disappointed as well. Like, I was going through the character creator and I see, wait, this is it? There's no beard? This is the only facial hair option?
I was sitting on the character creator, like, pressing right, like, come on, there must be a next page. Like, come on, where's the next page? Like, why is there not another page? I'm just like, no. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it.
It was very disappointing, especially after World, because in World we did have all of those options for massive beards, and I think they even added some with Iceborne, right? If I remember correctly.
Yeah, because in World it was sort of like it was a decent length, but it still wasn't quite there. And then in Iceborne they added like the big like hipster beard.
Yeah. The big beard, which is like, then you see it in Rise and like, oh, come on, man. But then again, they would probably feel pressured to do like beard physics or something like that. And then the Switch would be like, hey, man, look, we already got 5 monsters in a Rampage and you want beard physics, dude?
Hey, that's important, though. That's far more important.
It is. I think we could cut down on 1 monster for beard physics. So, like, instead of 5 monsters, let's make it 4 and then beard physics.
I feel like everyone would agree with that. Like, it's got to be done.
I completely and utterly agree. Have you checked on your playtime recently at all?
Yeah, I think I was sitting at about 220 hours now. I think that's where I was at. Yeah, I think that's where I was at yesterday. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. I think I'm probably somewhere around those numbers as well because I
Mm-hmm.
did do 2 saves because I streamed the whole thing on a second
Of
character.
course, yeah, of
Yeah.
course, yeah.
So that was completely insane. And then when I got closer to the end, I was like, no, I'm gonna swap back to my main character because I actually need these materials.
Yeah, exactly right. Like, yeah, double save files. It's funny because in all my Monster Hunter history, like apart from unless you have to do like a new stream, something like that, I've never done like double characters. But some people will just be like, I want to start a new save file. I'm like, I mean, fair enough, but there's just too many.
There's something really cool about experiencing that progression twice, you know. And there's some people that really live for that progression, and I can understand because, like, when I played Iceborne for the second time on the PC, and I was playing just Sword and Shield, I was like, yeah, this is cool, you know, reliving the experience instead of just like, you know, you get to the end, you have like your end game sets, and then boom, kind of like you're almost done. You know?
Yeah.
Then going through the progression again, it still feels good. But then, you know, when the desire sensor starts kicking you in the ass, you're just like, come on, just drop this gem already so that I can craft it and move on with my life.
You know what I wouldn't want to play is make a second save file, because I'd probably make a second save file and straight away I get like a god tier charm or like an attack jewel. It'd be like World. It'd be like, hey, here's your first attack jewel. Bear in mind, in World I think I was closing in on 2,000 hours. Still never got another attack jewel, apart from when they gave it to us. They were like, well, I feel so sorry for you that I will give you an attack jewel, right? And if I made a new save file, it would be like day one, bam, here you go. And I'm like, well, that's just annoying now.
You didn't get the one from the Witcher event?
You know what? I always forgot that because that was the one we had to go back and do Puke, right? You had to go and like.
You had to make sure that Puke didn't die.
You know, every single time I went to do that quest, literally. Puke would die, I would hit Leshen once, and it would die. I'm like, are you... And I was like, you know what? I don't even care. I don't even want an attack gem. No. Like, yeah. So I did not get that one.
But there's even like a special cutscene in the end where they give you the jewel as like a gift.
Oh, I missed out.
They show it on an actual package, and he's like, oh, really? Here's this gift. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. Maybe I'll go back now. Now I've got my Iceborne gear. I can just go and do it easily.
Yeah, you can just go in there and beat the crap out of him. But yeah, it was hard keeping Puke alive for that quest. But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned about missing out on gems, because like I did this video. Remember there was that time where they were giving us the critical eye decoration level 4 for free in one of those out. And I told people like the day that they announced it, I was like, guys, you got to make sure you got to log in on these days. The day before the thing came out, I made another video. Guys, make sure you log in tomorrow to pick up the gem. Then the day comes, I log in, pick up the gem, don't save the game and close it.
No.
And then I wasn't playing during that time. I had just logged in to pick up the gem, and then suddenly I'm trying to make a set, and I'm like, okay, so I have 2 critical eye 4s now, so it should be easy. And I'm like, where's the second one?
No.
Oh no.
Oh no, that is emotional.
Yeah, it was very, very tough to deal with that. But it's funny that you talked about losing stuff on your second or getting something special on your second save file, because on my main save file I've gotten like almost none of the room decorations that you can get for from the what's called the lottery.
Oh yeah.
On the second save file on the stream, the first day I streamed, I got like 3 decorations.
It's you know what? He's mugging me off. Kagero, right? Every time I see him and it's like a lottery and it's just for a potion, it's like, yep, you won the lottery every time. Yeah. And the second it's a doll, he's like, nope. I think I've won 2 items. Luckily, I'm very happy that I have got Mecha Tetranodon, which is cool. And then I think I got some random little cat doll. Outside of that, the only ones I've got have been from collecting relics. So yeah, my shelves are empty and I'm a collector. Like I want my shelves.
Exactly. It's like Kagero is even like, people think that getting like rubies or something like that, those things are hard. No, getting Kagero to drop like his friggin' decoration items for your room, now that's the really hard stuff.
True. Although, you know what, actually speaking of the decorations, obviously not spoiler territory, but from a certain monster in the game, I have currently fought it 20 times and it still won't give me its damn gem. So I can't. So I've got 4 out of 5 pieces of armor set. You know, this is closing in on the worst luck I've ever had in my whole Monster Hunter history was in when I fought Ivory Laggy, and it took me 31 hunts to get a plate, just a plate. Right? We're currently on 20 hunts, and X name monster will not give me that. So I've got 4 out of 5 pieces. Fortunately, I don't really need the armor set, but I'm just like, from a completionist point of view. And the worst thing is, I'm doing this hunt with my friends, and every single time someone's
They
like,
get it.
I've got one. I'm just like, what is going on? What is? It's crazy.
It's like I had a friend of mine. I still think that he might have gotten some of the stats on this charm wrong, but he just sends me a message saying like, "Oh, by the way, is a charm with level 3 artillery, level 2 evade extender, and a tier 2 decoration slot good?" And I'm like, "Excuse me."
No.
Then I asked him for a screenshot, and he said, "Oh, I deleted that charm by mistake." And I'm like, "What the hell are you talking about?"
Oh my gosh.
I hate you so much.
That is crazy. It's actually funny though on the charm front because like I mean in my entire Monster Hunter history like I just have terrible luck. Like Generations when I was charm farming never got a god tier charm. Like older games never got good charms. When it used to be like relic farming in for Ultimate never really got a good one. No decorations. But weirdly in Rise I just randomly did a Talisman meld and I got the level 2 weakness exploit, 1 point in item prolonger, and then it's got a level 2 and level 1 slot. So it's like a really good weakness exploit one.
Oh my god. That is really good.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I've never had a good charm, and I'm like, all right, I'll take it. So like, cool. I also got really nice one for Charge Blade. It's level 3 rapid morph and level 1 focus.
Oh
so
my god!
Straight away, yeah.
That is so good. Does it have any slots though, or is it no slots?
I think that one's no slots, so it's not perfect, but it's like still at least I can just get rapid morph out the gate, right? So,
yeah. You can just get Rapid Morph. But Rapid Morph is one of those skills that I kind of find is kind of easy to get. It's just tier 2 slots, so it's not...
True.
Not to mention there's some really good parts with it, like the Volvodon legs with 2 Evade Extender on top of it and 1 Rapid Morph. So there's a lot of things that I like with Rapid Morph already. And even the Almudron helmet is friggin' god tier with 2 slots, 2 tier 2 slots, and 1 Rapid Morph. So it's like Rapid Morph. I have one with 3 rapid morph as well, but it's like I don't think the rapid morph is a big deal because there's really good armor pieces with it. So you're known for saying that pretty much every new Monster Hunter game that comes out is your favorite.
Yeah.
So is Monster Hunter Rise your favorite Monster Hunter game?
It definitely is. Like, the thing is, it might not be again when when you can sort of compare it to everything else. It might not have like. I mean, obviously, it's just launch, right? There's obviously more content to come and stuff, but I've just from every single aspect of it, from the gameplay, just to sort of like the whole sort of environment and just the feel and the personality in the game, like it just ticks so many boxes for me. Is it perfect? Definitely not, but I think I can confidently say that I've had like the most fun playing Rise when compared to like any Monster Hunter game so far.
Yeah,
I think so.
It's like with me, before World, like I liked Monster Hunter, but it was not my favorite game. Like I enjoyed playing Monster Hunter quite a bit. It was just one of those things where I couldn't really like cover it that much because it would come out in Japan first, and then it would eventually come out in the West. But with World, it basically became my favorite game of all time. And Rise, I think, also for me has overtook World, despite the fact that still doesn't have nearly as much content as World. But there's just something about like the charm of Kimura, which is really special. There's the wire bugs, which feels much more polished than something like the Clutch Claw, which felt a little bit more clumsy. And it kind of scripted the fights in a way almost was like, hey, is the monster enraged? No, okay, slam it into a wall. Is it enraged still? No, slam it again. It's like just keep doing it until he gets enraged, and then ignore the Clutch Claw completely until he's no longer enraged. So it's kind of weird, but like the way that they did it with the wire bugs, I think works a lot better. So yeah, Rise also became my favorite. Is there like a specific thing about it that you can kind of like point to?
I think I wouldn't say one specific thing. I think there's a few things that I really like. So from a combat point of view, I just love like obviously as a creator anyway, and also just someone that's played Monster Hunter for a while. Like I've always tried to dabble in all the weapons, right? Obviously, I like to make sure I have like knowledge in all of them, so we can kind of make tutorials and stuff. But I've always found that once you've got through it, once you can say confidently, I can use every weapon. You then kind of gravitate back towards your favorite few, which everyone still does, and I'm definitely still doing. But I find that in Rise, that sort of gravitated group is much larger. I'm like, I want to like. I jumped into something the other day and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to pick up the switch axe, or I'm going to go and jump over to the Gunlance for this one, or I'm going to go and jump to this. So I find that I'm organically just using a lot more weapons just because the switch skill is just super cool. I'm just like loving that like a lot. So I definitely think on the weapon front. And the other one is just from like an exploration point of view. So I'm someone that, I love like action adventure games. I love, Zelda's my number one favorite franchise. So You know, like I get with the wire bugs and the exploration, and also just down to the maps, like even small things. Like I just love like the hidden relics, right? I just feel like in Monster Hunter games in the past, you've never really had. Okay, you can say I've gone out to like catch endemic life and stuff, but let's be honest. Like, outside of that, apart from like farm materials, you never really had an excuse to like I'm going to go and explore this corner of the map because there's probably nothing there, right? Whereas now it's like, oh, you know, there is a relic hidden up a tree that you would never normally climb. So I'm getting that kind of exploration, sort of Zelda-y Breath of the Wild fix in my Monster Hunter. And I'm just like, this is like an amalgamation of like my two favorite things. So they've just done so well with it.
They definitely have. How do you feel about Rampage? Because this is one of those modes that basically I said before the game came out, look, you're either going to love this mode or you're going to hate it. I don't think there's going to be like a middle ground of someone that be like, yeah, I'm okay with Rampage. And I kind of feel like that has been the norm whenever I look at my comment section or something. It's mostly people saying either they hate it or they really love it or they love playing it with friends or something like that. Where do you land on that?
I think I'm definitely in the if anything, I guess I probably would maybe be one of the weird ones that is sort of the middle ground. I definitely don't like. I mean, I really enjoy it. Like, I would if I had to pick one side, I would be on the I like Rampage side of things.
Yeah.
But it's definitely exactly like you sort of said. Like, I find the fun there playing it with friends. Like, I wouldn't be like if there's any other monster, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna go and just hunt it solo if I need some parts quickly. Rampage, I'm just like, I can't be bothered to jump into Rampage solo. I know you can do them, but I'm just like, I can't be bothered on my own to sort of set up all the artillery and the installments and stuff. So I enjoy them, and I do think it's really, really cool to sort of see something like, if you had have said, 10 years ago, oh, in one day in Monster Hunter, we're going to have like 5 monsters ramming down a gate, and you're all going to be like piling in together. I was like, you crazy. That's never going to happen. So to see it happen, like I liken it to sort of like the Mario Party monster experience, like Monster Hunter experience, because it's just like over the top craziness. But I do really enjoy some aspects of it, especially like for me more so it's less like the tower defensive parts, less putting down the installations, because that bit I'm just like a lot of the time I've got like a super, like my squad are really good at that stuff anyway, so I just stand there, I'm like, yeah, you can go set that stuff up and I'll be ready to go. But then the second the gong is sounded, like that is my favorite part. The second the gong, I'm like, I want to see how big my damage numbers can be. And I'm not even like a damage number person, I'm more of like I just want to have fun. But when I can jump up with an axe hopper and just be like, bam, and then see astronomical numbers I've never seen in my life, especially when you factor in this game is using like not bloated numbers as well. So, a lot of the time you're like, oh, I hit it for like 10s and 20s and 30s. And suddenly I'm seeing like 1,500 and I'm just like, what? So yeah, I do like Rampage. I definitely do like it.
Yeah, it's pretty insane. Like even the Rampage thing for me is like an excuse for me to use wide shelling, which is a type of shelling that I don't tend to use very much. But with wide shelling, you get, whenever you put a worm stake on a monster, you can hit for like 1,300 damage every single, and that's 1,300 KO or exhaust damage that you're doing on them.
Is that on the explosion or is that on the tick?
On the, what do you mean the tick? There's no ticks on wide shelling.
Oh, I meant when you put the worm stake in, doesn't it go like tick, 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 boom?
No, not wide shelling is just one tick. You just like go and it stabs and then it's just like one big damage numbers. There's no ticking at all.
Okay. Ooh, I haven't, I'm normally a normal, and as of kind of speaking to you recently, I've been dabbling in like long, but like wide, I've always been like, but obviously I'll need to dabble in that.
Yeah, wide this time around is completely different. Like wide is actually the one that you can supercharge. It charges up 2 levels instead of just 1. And there's like all of these mechanics to it. But it's the stun lance, because all of that damage is impact, so you can actually just chain stun monsters.
That's like cool. That's really cool.
One of those special bosses that you fight in Rampage, like there was this one time where I stunned it twice in a row. Just like spamming that, is like chunk, chunk, chunk.
That is
like
insane.
Yeah, it was freaking crazy. But yeah, you can get some really big damage numbers, and that is brutally satisfying. Just like, hey, look, everything's exploding, killing monsters with one hit and whatnot. It's insane. I actually think that Rampage is a lot of fun, but I definitely also think that it's more fun if you're playing with just at least one more person than just by yourself. By yourself, it can get overwhelming because all the monsters are focusing you. And it's like, I did all of the Rampages solo, all of the ones in the game, and I haven't failed a single Rampage. I don't think they're terribly hard. No. But like, solo, there are points where it's very frustrating, where you're just like, you're trying to do something, and there's like a monster just like constantly going at you like, poke, poke, poke. And you're just... And sometimes you can get even overwhelmed, just like getting thrown around all over the place. And I'm like, it's the equivalent of having like 2 bullfangos on top of you, but they're monsters.
True, very true. Yeah. That is true.
So, I wanted to ask you about your feelings on the growth spurt that the community has seen since Monster Hunter World, because I think it's undeniable that since World, definitely the community has kind of like expanded much more
Yeah.
than we've had in the past with any of the other games. What do you think about that? Like, how do you feel? Do you feel that the community has gotten worse? It's just gotten bigger? It's just like vocal minorities that sometimes are trying to ruin the fun for everybody else?
I think first things first. I think it's fantastic. Like I always like to see communities grow. Like it's weird, especially like in a kind of creative space. Like some people operate in a way where they see things in like competitive light, or not competitive. Some people sort of see things in like a light where they're they'll look at what other people are doing. I'm just like, I think more people is great because ultimately I think back to when Monster Hunter used to be such a like for all of it, for everyone that's enjoyed it, obviously they've loved it regardless. But it always used to be a niche franchise, right? And it was incredibly difficult to cover. If you wanted to cover it on handheld, you had to pay an expensive amount of money to get a modded 3DS so you could
Yes.
record it. Like the barrier to entry was astronomical. So the fact that now it's like anyone can cover it, like I love doing this. Like I've dabbled in many games over the past, so I'm very much used to just like I used to cover Destiny and Division and various different games. So I'm used to just like communities being hundreds of people and stuff. So but honestly, I think I've really liked seeing it for Monster Hunter because it's gone back from like back in the day where there's like you could count probably on one hand how many sort of people used to really cover the game. To now you can just like go on YouTube and find like so many different people and stuff. And I think it's always really good as well because I think it's important to realize, like everyone's got their own personal taste. Some people like to hear information from people in different ways. So even down to things like weapon tutorials or other things like that, I think it's great that so many people can do that stuff because everyone like interprets information differently. People prefer listening to different accents or different deliveries or see people like people's ways of kind of interpreting things. So I think it's really really good. On the kind of like on the kind of expansion front, I try to generally speaking I've been so busy making content I haven't actually seen like a lot of stuff. Occasionally I'll go on Twitter, I'm like, oh, what's today's drama? Like there's some stuff going on, but like a lot of the time I tend to not like focus on that stuff too much anyway. But I think generally speaking, at least from where I'm sitting, like I haven't sort of, I still think the community is largely speaking positive. Like there'll always be like an occasional disagreement, but I feel like disagreements in Monster Hunter space have always been tiny compared to like disagreements in other games. Like other game series, sometimes like disagreements in communities turn into like full blown wars and like battles and people just like taking sides. And whereas I think in Monster Hunter, because inherently the game is still a cooperative game, it's like we're working together to take down this monster. Because it's not a competitive game, it's not like, I need to, like, unless you're going to go for like, an arena speed run, in which case you want to be the fastest. Outside of that, I think generally speaking, because it is a cooperative game, I think most people are generally of the mindset that they just want to work together. There is always some difference, but like, I think it's all right.
Yeah, I think that there's been a bit of a vocal minority, but I think there's definitely been the positive aspects of the community have definitely won out. Like we've seen that I feel with Hey Jay. I'm not sure if you've heard about that situation.
Yeah.
Where Hey Jay was like, I don't like this game. I'm not going to buy this game or whatnot. And then the community is like, well, okay. But they started giving him a bunch of positive feedback. And eventually, I think that now he's finished World. And he's also starting with Rise. And, I eventually want to talk with him about how that experience was. But apparently there was just such an overwhelming amount of positivity for someone that basically made a video saying, I don't like this game. And the community, instead of just like lashing out, was more like, hey, maybe you should try this. Maybe you should do that. Maybe you should do it this way. So that was very interesting. I'm also curious to hear, like, how was the feedback to when you started creating content for Monster Hunter Rise before the game came out? Because like before the game came out, I feel like there's a lot of people that are kind of upset over the fact that, the game isn't coming to the platform that they have, right? And there's been a bit of lashing out there. Was that also like your sentiment on your end, like when you checked your comments and stuff for some of your videos?
I feel like initially there was definitely some of that, like around the announcement of it, like definitely people were like, oh, why? Because I can understand it. People were like, oh, why would you go from like huge success across multiple platforms to like going to just like one single platform? They were like, why wouldn't you put it on all of them? And on one hand, I'm like, okay, cool, you can put it on all of them. But then I think people seem to forget that if you put a game, like I think the Switch version looks fantastic, but obviously it's fantastic also for the Switch. But if like people were like, oh, why can you not just put it on PlayStation and Xbox? It's like if they put that on PlayStation and Xbox, everyone will be like, why have you downgraded the visuals? Because it would look like a downgrade compared to World and Iceborne,
Yeah.
right? Even though I love the look of it, and I would happily play it on a PlayStation, and there's lots of people that wouldn't mind. There would still be lots of people that would do that. So on one hand, they're like, give it to us on PlayStation. It's like, yeah, but if we give you that, you're then going to complain about something else. But the thing is, like, ultimately, like, yeah, I think it was really around the announcement. It was confusion. It was like, oh, when are we going to get it? Because there's obviously there's obviously timelines for development as well. Like it's fair to assume that given the hugely successful World and Iceborne, Capcom are obviously to develop something for those consoles like PS5 and Xbox Series X in the future, but that takes time. So I think just like the confusion at first, there was like quite a lot of comments, but then as it went on, it kind of just settles out. It's like the people that were like only going to play on PlayStation, Xbox were like, all right, I'm just gonna have to wait, and then they started to just like not watch as much. And then obviously on the Rise front, people are like, well, I'm getting ready for this, so I'm going to get excited. So then you just sort of saw the trend of like the people that cared were there, people that didn't weren't. And then again, much like anything like you sort of touched on earlier, there's always the kind of vocal minority that will like consistently get, angry about it or something like that. But I do think it was a minority really, so.
Yeah, I find it interesting that we had the situation with World moving over to the Switch, and it's not like Monster Hunter hasn't gone through this in the past, right? Because it started on the PlayStation 2, then it went on to the PlayStation Portable, then it went on to like I don't know if it went straight to 3DS or something like that. I don't remember the exact evolution.
PSP, then it went to Wii, I think, and then it went to 3DS.
Yeah, then it went to Wii, then it went to 3DS, and there was the PS3 one as well, which was portable third, but that one only ever came out in Japan. It never came out in the West. And it's like the series has always moved through different platforms as they kind of like go on, and it's like we at least got the announcement for the PC version, and some people were very upset over the fact, but we have to wait for a full year, and it's like it was almost this sentiment that those of us who were getting it on the Switch and the people that were getting it on the PC, it's like, oh, it sucks for us because we're going to have to wait for a year. You guys have no idea what that's like. And we're like, well, no, because the game used to come out in Japan first, so we know exactly what it's like to wait for a year.
Exactly.
At this point, we're just kind of like thankful for the fact that the game isn't like 1 year apart between Japan and the West. They were like, dude, at least we're getting it day and date. So
that used to be a nightmare because I used to import it from Japan and obviously play that. And like, I learned Japanese, so I've got like a basic understanding, but I'm definitely not in anywhere fluent. So like I would sort of hobble my way through the game and work it out as I'm going along, and the mixture of like being able to read some stuff and then use translators and stuff, it was always a fun game. So yeah, like I'm just so grateful for like worldwide releases now. It just makes and it's important as well because obviously Capcom are before it's obviously Monster Hunter is huge in Japan anyway, but like before it was always like Japan is like their big market and then there's like Western stuff, but like now Monster Hunter is huge in the West, so obviously their release plan clearly reflects like the way that the franchise has grown as well.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I was going to ask you is if you had ever imported one of those games to actually cover it. I guess you just...
I used to import so obviously I started covering from 3 Ultimate. I was playing from Freedom Second. I played Portable Third. That was previously as well. It's probably partly why I love Rise so much. Portable Third was one of my favorites for a while, but that was back in like I just played that with friends for fun. And then following 3 Ultimate, every single like new one. So I imported 4, played that for a little bit, and then obviously started to cover that. But then 4 Ultimate came out. So for a while I was doing like the kind of double cycle because I played Monster Hunter Cross, then Generations, then Double Cross, then GU.
Oh my god!
And I was just like, by the time that happened, I was like, yo man, I played this game a lot. So yeah, I definitely used to do that for like a couple of Pokemon games as well. But yeah.
So you basically had to import like a Japanese capture-enabled 3DS, right?
I have during the early days of capturing that stuff. I had an import PSP for like earlier stuff that could capture, and a Japanese one. I had an import 3DS that could capture in UK and a Japanese one. And then at one point, I think I got a US. Like I just had to, and also they weren't even that reliable. So at one point, like one of them looked like it was like starting to break. So I had to import like another one. There was only one place to go from. They were always like super expensive.
Yep.
So yeah, I think I ended up buying like 4 or 5 from them in the end.
Jesus Christ! Like it's funny because a lot of people don't realize that. But when we used to make those videos, because I did some 3DS stuff as well, I imported a capture unit as well. You even had it worse because for those of you that don't know, 3DS games are region locked. So essentially, it's not like Arekkz could just import the Japanese cartridge and be good to go.
Yep.
No, it wouldn't work on an EU console. So you'd need a modified Japanese console. Then if you wanted to capture EU games, because, if you're working with publishers, they'll give you like EU codes, you'd need to import a modified, because you'd have to go to Japan, because that's the only place they would modify these consoles. And it was insane. I had a modded Vita. I still have a modded Vita that I purchased. And that was also very cool. It's interesting because it's the same software as the 3DS. The Vita soft, it's the exact same thing. So you get an extra USB on your console, and then it just streams stuff over to your computer. It was completely insane. And did you ever get those stuck in customs?
No, fortunately I didn't. I think.
You lucky bastard!
Yeah, I think the longest one I had was, so obviously when we started covering it initially. What was it? I think it was for like 4 Ultimate. It was easy enough to kind of get a hold of. And then as it started to get more popular, I think it was around Generations. I think it was around Double Cross. There was like suddenly a lot more people wanted to cover it, so there was like a huge influx of orders. So when I placed normally I'll place my order in a couple of weeks, I get it. But this time it was like, you have to wait a couple of months, and I was like, but then they were like, unless you can have someone that can go to the shop. So then there's a Japanese like website where you can basically like pay a courier to go to a shop and buy it. So I paid for someone to literally walk into the shop in Japan and was like, I need this today. I was like, I can't be waiting 2 months, man. This game is coming out. I need to cover this. No.
Imagine you just having to pay someone to go to a shop to get a console. I waited for the months. Like I had no choice. I was like, nope.
No,
I'm already paying for too much. I was lucky that my 3DS didn't get stuck in customs, but the Vita did, and I had to pretty much pay. So you pay more than twice the worth of the console for them to, if you buy the console already modded, you're already paying like more than twice the value of the console. And then when it got stuck in customs, I then also paid the value of the console on top of it. It was insane. Yeah. That was the most expensive Vita you could have possibly purchased. And, and a couple of years later, Sony's like, yeah, we don't care about the Vita. Let's forget about that console. Let's pretend it never really happened.
I miss the Vita. Vita was like near the earlier days of like when we started YouTube, but I didn't have like a modded thing. That was back in the day where I would hold my Vita like this, and I would have a camera pointing downwards.
Oh my god!
And I would have to play through the viewfinder and like just try and hold it steady. And then when I made my edit, I had like a PNG frame of a Vita, and I would cut the frame into it and try and hold it that way. So I used to I did do a couple of videos early on. Like I wasn't really covering Monster Hunter at the time, but I recorded a couple of Portable Third videos of just like hunts with friends against like Amatsu Magatsuchi, and I'm trying to hold here, and I'm getting like a bad back because I'm just like I'm trying to balance. I'm like, I don't want to lose this, and then suddenly you get into the hunt and you're like, oh no, I'm going off screen, and then that was tough.
I did the same thing with the Vita, because interestingly enough, I started because even though I played, my first Monster Hunter was Monster Hunter Tribe. I didn't like it when I first played it, and eventually what got me into Monster Hunter was playing it on Freedom Unite. And I never had a PlayStation Portable, so I was playing Freedom Unite on the Vita. And I was actually surprised because the Vita seamlessly connected to my friend's PSP when we were able to like just play Monster Hunter Freedom Unite together.
Nice.
Yeah, it was actually really well made. So that was like the first time I played Monster Hunter. So some of my first Monster Hunter videos is me with that setup that you're talking about, just like a camera pointing at it, and I'm just trying to keep it as steady as possible and trying to play through the viewfinder. And just playing like crap because I could barely play Monster Hunter to begin with, and then playing it through the viewfinder was so bad.
Oh dear, back in the day, man, that was crazy.
That was some interesting stuff. So you've been living in the training room, and recently in the Third Fleet podcast, I asked Gaijin about his process for doing the weapon guides, and I'm curious about what your process is, because Gaijin basically told me like he scripts it, and then after he does his script, he'll like review the script like 12 times or something ridiculous like that before he actually puts it out. And I'm just thinking to myself, wow, I couldn't do that because I suck at writing. Like I'm really bad at writing.
Fair.
So how do you go about doing it?
So I do script for these ones because so it's funny, like in my sort of YouTube journey, like earlier on, because I used to be like a lot more sort of, I don't know, like not great in front of camera, and used to be a lot more sort of, I struggle with my words and whatnot. So I used to script almost all my videos, and then there kind of came a point where I just feel like most of my stuff now I just do off the cuff. However, for weapon tutorials specifically, because they are so detailed and there's so much stuff I want to make sure I don't miss, they are the one thing that I do script. So the process is quite long because for me, so like it starts in like a notepad document where I sit in the training room and I just systematically go through and just write down every combo permutation just so I know what they are. So I'm just like, all right, cool, I've got these. So making sure I don't miss anything. Like, sometimes there'll always be like an obscure, and invariably there will always be something you miss. Like, there'll always be a really obscure combo that no one uses. But if you don't mention it, someone will be like, you forgot this one hyper specific move that you never use. But I'm going to tell you anyway. But I'll try and write them down. And then after that, I then work out the flow because obviously, I'm sure, you sort of like, everyone's got like a different flow for stuff, but like, take someone like the Charge Blade. I'm like, all right, how do I want to explain this weapon? Because I'm like, there's no point me saying, or like for me, personally, I'm like, all right, before I start telling someone about the moves, I want them to understand the ethos of the weapon, because I'm like, if I say to them later, oh, by the way, those files you need to charge, and they're like, wait, what's a file? I'm like, okay, so then I start restructuring things. I'm like, oh, what do I need to say first in order to make sure this makes sense? So then I'll start going down, and obviously because our weapon workshops are broken into sort of like typical structures, it's a lot easier now. I'm like, all right, I've got like an intro for the weapon, I've got like a little spiel about it, a little kind of context, and then sort of jumping in. So then I start to like flesh it all out, and then I record all the audio, I cut it all into big chunks and chapters, and then I go into the training room and record like hyper specific stuff first. I record like all the little bits and showing off the moves. I then cut each of them like individually to like all of my words so that it like lines up perfectly. And then afterwards, I go and record like a load of B-roll and just do some hunts against some monsters and just fill in all the gaps and try and make it look fancy. And then I go through and do like a pass and add in all the motion graphics and the buttons and all that.
It's freaking crazy. You do all of that editing yourself in the...
For the workshops, mostly we've been so like the way that we've kind of been doing it around like launch. The initial plan, like first launch, because obviously we got the team. I was sort of working on the workshops, and then like the team were working on like a lot of the other videos that were sort of just like the general kind of Monster Hunter guides for like other stuff.
Yeah.
And now that we're sort of starting to get on top of that, some of the team are also starting to work on like some different ones in the background. But most of the ones that have gone out so far, I've worked on myself. But that being said, like outside of that, we work as a team to kind of like make sure that we can check all the information. So everyone is like good. Like everyone's better with different weapons. So for example, we're doing.
You have a bigger pool of data to kind of like go through, because
exactly.
you have 4 people that are playing, and then you can go like, hey, what is the special thing about this weapon? And
exactly, yeah. And then afterwards we'll all sit down and review it together, and then people, because it's always good to, sometimes when you edit something yourself for so long, you kind of just don't like, you can't see the wood for the trees. So then we'll sit down as a team, and they'll be like, oh, shouldn't you have mentioned that? Or like, oh, you forgot to mention this. And I'll be like, oh yeah, okay, we need to kind of go back and change it. So yeah, it's definitely like it's 100% like a team effort. But yeah, the actual like physical editing for the one so far I've done, but we're now trying to like broaden it out, because it just takes so long. It's just such a big process.
Because like I feel like people that might watch your videos and maybe they're not they don't understand how content creation works. They don't understand the amount of, because like your stuff has some serious production value. Like those videos could be something that you would present like on a TV show, and they wouldn't look out of place. Basically, it's like that's the level of production value. Like what I do forget about it. Like in terms of production value, like it's completely a completely different thing. And it's just, I think that people don't understand just the amount of time that it takes to edit something to be on that level, which is completely insane.
The daunting thing is that when you look at it across like all the weapons, because to kind of give some context, like when Rise was coming out, sometimes people were like, oh, how do you get a video out so fast? Like a news video, I can do in like 30 to 60 minutes. Like I can just be like, bam, done. One of these videos is like 20 hours. And I'm just like, times that by 14 weapons? That's a long time. And people are like, oh, yo, when's the next weapon tutorial? I'm like, I'm going to try and get to you as soon as I possibly can. But then and the problem is like, that's assuming nothing else happens. But then in the week, it'll be like, oh, there's other videos or something else will come up, and it'll be like, oh no. And then, or what's happened with some of them is, we'll start working on them. And then we're like, oh, actually, we need to explain this in a different way. Or like I might start doing it and think, that's cool, but then actually this goes better here. Or so there's definitely some times where I was like, there's a couple of videos that I sort of wanted to put out, and then like last minute I'm like, it's not quite right. Or like the teams be like, it's not quite right, so we pushed it back a bit to fix it and stuff, because ultimately these are evergreen content, right? So they're going to sit around for like a long time, and I want to make sure that they are, there's always something you miss, but I want to make sure they're as close to being perfect as we can.
It's one of those things that I feel like I hope that people understand, at least in my side, people have been very understanding. If I happen to miss like a move or something in one of my tutorials, they're pretty chill about it. They'll just be like, hey, listen, you didn't mention this thing, and then I'll go and I'll like the content so that it gets pushed to the top so that people can watch it. So it becomes kind of like a community effort. But largely the community has been understanding. But in case anyone ever sees a video, it's like, I can't believe you didn't miss that. You didn't talk about this thing, either on you or on me or on Gaijin, on anyone's video that does a video about that. I think people need to understand that it's hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours to really master a weapon to that extent, where everything about it, which is one of the reasons why I like my Gunlance guide. I called it the ultimate Gunlance guide. For the other guys, they're just guides. It's like the Charge Blade guide, the Sword and Shield guide. So in case if I miss something, at least I don't get too hard called out on it, because we don't have like hundreds upon hundreds of hours to put into 14 different weapons. Like just 100 hours on each would be 1,400 hours. That would be insane. There's no way. So, you know,
and you forget as well, like some of the weapons are so in depth. Like, you know, there's a lot of things that sometimes you'll just do for, you know, or you just kind of just do without thinking. Like even when I was writing up like one of the tutorials the other day, like I had to rewrite a few things because there's a few things that I just do and take for granted. And then like sudden and like it's like a combo you just like you don't even think of it as a combo. Like it's just a movement, and you're like, oh, actually, wait, that's not something that you do normally. So you're like, oh, actually, I need to mention this kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of like nuance that I think a lot of people sometimes forget. Like when you like use a weapon, to try and actually like break that down into like, let me actually extract every single permutation of this weapon. It's like, it's a lot.
It's insane, which is why when I started doing the Gunlance, when I was going over in my head and going like, this is crazy. So I have to explain the 3 different shelling styles. I have to explain all of these different switch skills. I have to explain like, this is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
It took me a long time to get through the Gunlance one, which is it's insane. It was definitely the longest one that I had to do, but it's still a lot of fun. Like at the end of the day, it's still a lot of fun to just like experiment with all of that stuff. And here's the thing: how many have you made so far? Because I haven't been checking.
Four. Yeah, so 4 so far. So we've done Hunting Horn, Insect Glaive, Longsword, and Sword and Shield, and then I'm currently working on Charge Blade.
Oh, Charge Blade.
One of my other, well, since I'm the Sword and Shield main, I like the little Sword and Shield and the big Sword and Shield.
It's me, basically, the way that I went about it is I just did all of the shield weapons first, and then I'm just going to do everything else, because it's always shields up, iron breakers. So I just like weapons with shields. So yeah, I did all of that first.
Yeah, I want to sort of pick at it from, because we picked on like Hunting Horn first. Was like, well, Hunting Horn is like so different in Rise. I was like, well, people want to know about that. Then we picked like Longsword, because we're like, Longsword is this now. Rise deems Longsword as like the beginner weapon. Like it puts it on your back to begin with. So I was like, oh, this is a weapon that people gravitate towards. So like we'll do that. After that, it was just Sword and Shield, because it's like, well, that's my main. So like I'm just like, I know that weapon better than any other weapon. So let me just run with that. And then Insect Glaive, because Insect Glaive was having so many cool changes. So I was trying to just like tackle weapons that have had like the most different in Rise. Yeah. And then I was like, and then I'll pick up some of the other ones that are like more similar. So, you know, I anticipate things like Lance, or like I know some other weapons like that being like a little bit further out, but yeah.
So while you were doing this, a cool thing about doing this is that we're kind of like experiencing a lot of these weapons, and sometimes there's something while we're practicing with them that kind of like calls out to us. Which one of the weapons like that you've worked on so far is called out to you the most?
You know what? I think it's actually the Insect Glaive. I think actually, honestly, the Insect Glaive. So like I've always liked this weapon. I used it a lot in 4 Ultimate. I didn't use it as much in World and Iceborne, because in World and Iceborne, like, it was still a fantastic weapon. But truth be told, if you were gonna use, you know, and again, I know Monster Hunter, you don't have to play for the meta. But let's just, you know, let's say you're playing and you want to do like some decent damage. Chances are you're not really doing much aerial combat in World and Iceborne, right? You're staying on the ground, and for a weapon that is all about like being a Sun Wukong and launching yourself up into the sky, knowing that that's not really a big draw, I was like, you know, so I didn't use it much in World and Iceborne. And then coming back into Iceborne, like obviously we played the demo, and then we were like, you know, it's cool. Like Insect Recall is all right, but it's like, you know, it wasn't that when you factor in the demo, it was like, oh, here's some fantastic, crazy moves, and here's the Insect Glaive. I was like, oh, you know, fair enough. And then I picked it up, and then like obviously at first I was just messing around with it. I was like, oh, you know, I got some of the new. My kind of discovery process for it was like the first thing that I unlocked was the round slash. So obviously like dashing towards it and launching up in the sky. I was like, well, this is kind of cool. Then obviously I got the Wyvern dive. I was like, well, that's a lot of fun. And it was only afterwards that I was like, wait, there's an aerial buff here. Like, hold on a minute. Like, you know, we suddenly sort of see this. I was like, oh, aerial's actually viable. And then suddenly you start racking it up, and then you see the Wyvern dive, and I'm like, I've never seen these numbers on the Insect Glaive before. It's like, oh, this is cool. So yeah, that honestly, I think the discovery process for Insect Glaive has probably been one of my favorites of the ones I've worked on so far.
Yeah, and Insect Glaive was really interesting because, like, when I first started, working on it, because I was working on a set specifically to fight a certain boss that we're not going to talk about. I even told you about it, and you were like, "Oh, you got to try the Carnage Beetle; it's insane." And I went and I looked at it. Oh my god, that is friggin' crazy! Because you basically you kind of almost transform your insect glaive into a severing weapon that's a hammer at the same time. It's completely insane. You can stun, you can slash. So the insect glaive looks really cool, which is why I gave my community the choice. Which weapon guide do you want me to work on next? Like currently, I'm still wrapping up Hunting Horn. And Hunting Horn is really fun, but I basically gave them two choices. In the next one, I can either work on Hammer or Insect Glaive. They still picked Hammer. They're like,
really?
No, bunk, go bunk. And I was like, okay.
Hammer's fantastic. Hammer is really cool. Hammer's one of those ones where like Hammer's like I want to go and spend a bit more time with anyway, because like historically a lot of Monster Hunter games, I've always just like done a lot of time with Hammer. Like I used to be a Hammer main back in Freedom Unite anyway. I've used Hammer like a fair amount in pretty much all games. This one I've dabbled in it a fair bit. Like at first, when Rise first came out, during some of my playthrough, I was messing around with it, especially getting like the new switch skills. I was like, oh, I like this a lot. But I haven't sort of spent the time yet to sort of sit in the training room and like discernibly be like, okay, cool, this is where this use is, or the different use cases and stuff. So yeah, that's been that.
That's pretty friggin' wild. In terms of ramp up skills, because ramp up skills have been another thing that kind of like changes things up significantly. Is there a particular ramp up skill that calls out to you whenever you're looking at a weapon and you're checking out the different Rampage skills that it has?
Actually, honestly, at the moment, I haven't done too much digging into Rampage skills, apart from like when you were sort of chatting to me the other day and talking about like brutal strikes, which obviously I just throw on like the Goshalag weapons anyway. Outside of that, I've just been at the moment kind of just doing the sort of the lazy approach, which is like if there's just like an attack boost or like an affinity one, I'll just whack it on. I do want to mess around with them because there's some really interesting ones for like synergy, specifically around some of those hyper specific ones like dragon damage and like wyvern, like use cases against like specific types of monsters. I think the game words it a bit differently, but I think their actual use case is actually quite specific. It actually gives you some like noteworthy damage boosts. But yeah, honestly, like for Rampage skills, I still haven't done too much because I'm just making so many different weapons and just like testing things out at the moment. So I haven't really sort of settled on it. I think for me, once I've got through like a lot of the main stuff, and then I start like finalizing my builds, then I'll start looking at that. What about you?
For me, it's definitely been Brutal Strike because I'm just like, I've never liked the whole thing of following the meta of going like, okay, we got to get 7 critical eye, we got to get 3 weakness exploit, we got to get 3 critical boost, which really limits the amount of sets that you can use, particularly in Rise with the limited amount of armor that is available. You're looking at most people, basically, if they're going for that, damage meta, everybody's going to be doing the same thing. So I like that Brutal Strike kind of like frees me from that because it's like, hey, look, every now and then I'll get a crit. Boom, done. Okay, that's sorted. We don't need critical boost. We don't need Wex. Now I can do all of these crazy fun things. Like I recently did a build for the Sword and Shield with Bubbly Dance and Resuscitate. And I was just like, this is a lot of fun. This is way more fun than going like for Wex and all of this other crazy stuff.
Definitely. No, 100%. Those ones are always like, I definitely always enjoy fun builds more. And especially in Rise, like, given that like the monsters aren't like too challenging anyway, you can especially get away with them. Like, you don't, there's nothing really where it's like, oh, I have to lean into this. That's why like one of my favorite sets of like all time was back in the 4 Ultimate days. And like, I'm working on bringing it back now. Is like, we had this thing in 4U, me and Socks and a couple of people back in the day. It was called like the Naptime Ninjas. So we would have the Nosilla, the Shrouded Nosilla Charge Blade, and we would all run sleep. And then every time the monster would go to sleep, we would all synchronize SAED, so like do 4 at the same time on the sleeping monster's head. And we just used to call ourselves the Naptime Ninja. It just used to be the thing. And then people have been like in the comments like, oh, yo, when's the ninja set coming back? I'm like, I'm working on it. I mean, there's literally only an option of Somnicanth right now. But like, and it's kind of annoying because the Somnicanth one's got green sharpness. But I'm like, you know what? I don't even mind because that whole set is cool. So yeah, I like those fun ones.
Yeah, just experimenting with fun skills to me is much more fun than just like, okay, you got to go for the most mathematical plot. Like, there's a place for that, and if people enjoy that, that's cool. But I personally like experimenting with other crazy things and crazy skills. Like right now, I'm also running, like my main set right now is Hellfire Gunlance.
Okay.
Because you can actually drop the Hellfire if you use Ground Splitter. So Ground Splitter drops the Hellfire. And not only that, but most of the times, it's kind of weird because sometimes it doesn't do it, but most of the times it drops it and instantly detonates it with the hit as well. So basically it can be right in front of the monster and just like Ground Splitter, and it instantly like knocks him off for like the first time you do it or whatever, and then eventually it knocks him off again. And it's still 60 added damage every time that I do Ground Splitter almost. So it's like, it's really fun. And then cool. I use the Magnum Malo Gunlance. It's not the most efficient one, I don't think, But I also like blast procs, so you just
Yeah.
get some fun stuff, and it's like, hey, this works.
True. And then you can run Magnum Aloe Soul on that, right? Because obviously it pairs with the
Yeah.
Hellfire Glaive. So
Magnum Aloe becomes a lot easier as well if you do that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's cool. That's cool. That's really cool. Yeah. I like a lot of those. I do like. That's one thing I also really like about Rise. Like some of the less like damagey focused ones, they've just dialed them up to the max. They're like, hey, quick sheath. You want a sheath in like 0.2 seconds, or like load shells. You want to like fill your shells just off of yellow, and I'm like, oh yes, please. And then like flipping, like my favorite one was just evade distance. When I did that with a lance, and you know Lance has got the long back hop.
Yeah.
If you do the long back hop with evade, you flipping jump from Komura Village to like the New World. You're gone.
Yeah, but I almost feel like there was a bit of a nerf to a lot of weapons mobility in the fact that, you have all of this mobility now with the vid extender, but if you don't have a vid extender, it almost feels like the weapon's not moving as much as it used to in previous games.
True, yeah. There are definitely some where I do feel like the roll is quite short. Maybe they're doing it. Maybe they just want to kind of encourage you to like mess around with more of the fun stuff.
Yeah, because like for instance, Charge Blade, which is the weapon that I use the most during Monster Hunter World, I could not use Charge Blade in Rise to save my life. I would be always getting hit, and I'm just like, what is wrong? I put 2 evade extender on it, fixed.
Really?
Like no more problem. I mean, eventually I also put rapid morph, which also helped out a lot. But basically, 3 rapid morph, 2 evade extender, fixed. No problems anymore.
Nice.
Works great.
That's a good point actually. Yeah. Huh. Probably safe for like switch axe as well.
Yeah, but I mean,
side hop.
I used to always use evade extender on switch axe, even in world.
Okay.
Like so. I mean, I say always in world because, like in the previous Monster Hunter games, you didn't really have the skill budget to put in all of these skills together.
True.
So, is the sword and shield still your favorite weapon after all of the experiences that you've had in Monster Hunter Rise?
Ooh. I do still think it is. I do still think like I just love it so much.
There's
like,
some doubt. There's some doubt I can sense in your voice.
The thing is, the reason I've got the doubt is like I've used it the most of everything, right? So like I broke over like 110, 115 hunts with it, right? And I was like, like on your guild card, there's like that line where it's like the 100 hunts. So like when it went beyond that point, I was like, right, sword and shield, you need to just be put on the back burner until I've done all my other tutorials. Like I'm not going to use sword and shield again, but occasionally I just like go back to it. It's just like I think it's an interesting one. I feel most at home with the sword and shield, like, and I just love the flow, and like I can like sometimes if you've been dabbling with like, I'm sure how same thing happens if you're doing like loads of different tutorials, jumping between different weapons. Sometimes you pick one back up, and like the first hunt, you need to readjust your mind again. Sword and shield, I can straight away just be like, I'm back in, like I know my flow. Metsu Shorigeki is cool. Yeah. But I do still think that although I love that one the most, I do still think I've had probably the most fun with Gunlance and glaive, just because like. Blast Dash is just so much fun,
so
man.
Good.
Like it's funny because again there was that adjustment period where like at first I was using it very intentionally at first. I was like, all right, I need to make sure I've got a setup to use it. Whereas now it's just like, wait, the monster's jumped away. Normally it'd be like put your weapon away and chase after it. I'm like, no, just boom,
Blast Dash right in there.
On the face. So like, I do honestly I'm having so much fun with that one.
It's freaking crazy. And then the fact that you can also shell while you're in the middle of the air and start going up. A lot of times, like I would do that if I'm running normal or long in some fights where the monsters are flying. I don't bother with a flash anymore. I'll just zap in there and then just start shooting and hope that I eventually bring them down. Because it's so much more fun. Like I've dunked a Rachna Kadaki out of the ceiling with that.
Ooh.
So she was in the ceiling and I'm just like, blast dash, bang, 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 bang. And then on the last hit, you do a slam and this slam. And she came on crashing down. I'm like, yeah, get dunked on.
Amazing.
It's so good. It just feels really good. Blast dash is indeed very fun. But let me tell you something, okay? When you're married, you can't just tell your weapon to be like, I think I still love you. That doesn't work.
True.
That just doesn't work.
Yeah, I mean, I think if a gun was held to my head, right, as much as I have fun with Gunlance, if someone was like, you have to choose a weapon right now, I'm still gonna grab sword and shield.
It's still the sword and shield.
Still the sword and shield.
So sword and shield is also one of my favorite. It's my second favorite weapon, so I completely understand. Metsu Shorigeki feels friggin' great when you land it just right. It's really good.
So good.
It's super satisfying. What hunting pals are you using with the sword and shield?
I just have the same hunting powers for like everything. So I've now put Palico as number 1, and then Palamute as number 2. I just have both of them because I just like having like the little duo. But my Palico is the gathering type with power drum, endemic barrage, and a trap. So it's kind of like a decent sort of setup. So yeah, I've been, but honestly, like I was thinking about this the other day because I was chatting to the guys for like a upcoming discussion about this one as well. But like, I'm partly using the cat because I just found that when I was using the Palamute, I would just instinctively always ride the Palamute to a destination. And I just love the Wirebug mobility so much that like I find by having the cat, it just forces me to use the Wirebug, and I just enjoy it more. Like I just enjoy it. And also I used to feel kind of bad because I drop on my Palamute, and then you leave the cat behind. He's just got to run after you. I'm like, why can you not? Why is there not an animation for the cat jumping on the dog too, and then you ride together as a little trio? So no, now I'm there. Me and Itadori, we sit there together and we ride it out.
So the way that I did it was like in multiplayer, everybody was using the dog, and I was like, no, because I agree with what Gaijin said, where if you have the camps, you can actually navigate the map just as fast as people with the dog in most situations. Like there's a couple of situations where people who have the dog, they'll get there first. But most situations you can just like, okay, monster gone there, I can jump to this camp, and then from here I can wire bug somewhere, and boom, done, you'll get there just as fast as everybody else. So I just started getting used to that in multiplayer, to the point where I'm like, well, I'm sorry, Palamute. I don't feel like I need a Palamute anymore. I can just have 2 Palicos with assist skills. And it's interesting that you also have a Gathering Palico, because in a lot of ways, I'm almost kind of against the selfish aspect of the Gathering Palico, right? Because, you know, oh, you're bringing a Palico. What's he going to contribute to the hunt? Oh, he's going to steal items for you. Must be nice. But then I was like, but dude, the Gathering Palicos are friggin' broken with Endemic Barrage.
Yeah, I know, right?
Like, it's insane, the fact that they can just, oh, here's a sleep toad, boom, sleep. I'm just like, dude, I've equipped, at one point in the game, I had an assist Palico and a dog, both of them equipped with sleep weapons, and they wouldn't get a sleep on the monster. I just get this Gathering Palico, and he just ran like, here's a sleep, here's a paralyze, and I'm just like, this
it's so cool. And it's such a cool animation as well, just seeing them with the little, like,
a little ballista,
catapult. Yeah.
So,
no, I do love them.
The way that I run now is I run Gathering Palico and Assist Palico, and it's insane. Like sometimes they'll just do some really crazy stuff. Like one of them will put down a trap, and then you will start like pulling the monster with the thing with the. He gets the harpoon thing.
Yeah.
And so he puts the one that put the trap was actually the Gathering one. He put like a shock trap, and then the assist one threw the harpoon and starts yanking him in towards the trap, and then he gets trapped.
Really?
What?
That's incredible.
Then there's other situations where like one of them will he put the trap down, the pitfall trap. The assist Palico put down the pitfall trap, and then while the pitfall trap was down, the other one threw a shock toad at him. So I stunned him while he was in the pitfall, and he wants to just like sit in there for like half an hour. And I'm like, what the hell? You get some really crazy combinations when you have those two. So I'm just like, dude, this is the best. This is the best. I can't go back to having Palamute. It's too hard.
Yeah, true. And I'm a cat person anyway, so I'm like, I need to lean more into the Palico.
The Palico are definitely a lot of fun. So which one is your favorite monster of the ones that we can talk about? I don't want to talk about the last ones, but sure. I don't expect those to be your favorites anyway, right?
No. My favorite is Gosarag. I love fighting him. He's such a cool monster. Like he obviously anatomically he's just different to like a lot of the kind of typical wyverns we fight anyway. But I just love how I love the look of his armor. I love, of course, like the yokai inspired theme behind him, but just like the way that he is just so menacing. I love how like so many people have shared this video where like they all get the same experience where they'll get stunned by him and he just turns around and just walks to you like the Grim Reaper, just slowly just dragging his blades across the floor. And it's just like, this is the scariest thing in the world. But he's such a cool monster. It's like the way that he changes color, and especially like in high rank, he's got the blade and the club. And it's just like, he's just cool. So yeah, definitely him.
Gosarag is friggin' amazing. Even just yesterday, I had a terrible experience with him where I Metsu-Shoryugeki'd one of his attacks when he's like spinning around. And so like I did a perfect counter and I was like, oh, this is going to be great. So I did the perfect counter. My character goes up. By the time he comes back down, he's on his back and he's dead. Because he was spinning the blade still while I was going up and it was hitting me like... Just-
I've always felt like I feel like it's probably just me in my mind, but I've always felt like there's this weird aerial damage multiplier in like when you get hit in the air by monsters. Because sometimes I'll go up and I'll be on full health, but I'll get hit in the air, I'm just dead. I'm just like, I'm sure it wasn't that powerful before. And this has been in Monster Hunter history for a long time. Even in World, like there'll be times where I go up in the air and I just be like, how am I dead? So there must be a secret.
There might be something there because like a lot of situations where you get caught by the wire bug recovery, I also feel like, wait, that attack did a little bit more damage than what I was expecting. I don't know how I feel about this.
It's so true. It's so true. Oh, the wire bug recovery is so funny, especially when sometimes I'll use it completely the wrong way, and I'll wire bug recovery like towards the monster. He's like, I'm gonna hit you again, and then I'll wire bug recovery back towards him, and I get hit again. I'm just like, what have I done? What why? I shouldn't be allowed the wire bug.
Exactly. That happens way too often, particularly to me with something like Diablos getting hit on the tail swipes. I'm like, I'll just recover. Oh, never mind. I guess I'll just sit here and die.
Yep, exactly.
So we now know your favorite monster. Who's your Monster Hunter Rise waifu? Gotcha. I gotcha.
Hojo.
Oh, good one. Very good one. Very good one. Dude, how can they put a baby Tetsukabra in there and not have a Tetsukabra in the base game? I was oh my god, how could you do this? I missed the Tetsukabra so much.
You know what was hilarious at launch, right? Like we for a while, right? When I was playing with the squad, they were like, what's Hojo? We were playing in English, bear in mind. Like at first, I've changed Japanese voice now, but there's a voice line for him, and I was like, well, it wasn't me, it was someone else that noticed it. They were like, did he just say what I think he says? What he actually says is watch a master painter at work. But if you got an imagination, it sounds like something different. Oh, no. I was like, did he just say what I think he said? For a while, I was like, I couldn't unhear it, and then I was like, oh, it's master painter. Okay, cool. It's like, Hojo, what are you talking about? But I like the way that he just sort of sits there, scribbles, and then I love the synergy between when he just throws the paper and then Minato. Is it? You know what? I'll be honest.
It's Minato.
This is why I can't pick like a Monster Hunter waifu, because honestly, I don't know their names. I don't know who Minato is. I don't know who Noah is. I'm just like the twins.
They're just the twins. Okay.
They're just the twins. But yeah, when she grabs it, it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Although if you listen to Fukushigi, he tells you that she can't draw worth a damn, which is why Hojo is the one that has to. He's the one that has to do the drawings.
It's funny, I can believe that now because there's a lot of times when, because I've only started noticing this since recording like Monster Hunter Mondays, because obviously I've got the panel where they sit side by side of me, and because I've recorded an extended period of time, after a while Minato just gets angry. She screws up paper and just throws it away. So it must be she's just trying to draw.
Yeah, exactly. Those little details on the animations are always so friggin' good. It's insane. So who's your favorite Rampage summon?
Probably so. Okay, so I like Fugen just for the badass.
Just for the damage.
Yeah, for the damage and the fact that he pulls out with a massive sword. But honestly, Utsushi, because when you have the right monsters in and everything becomes mountable. Yeah. And you just all jump on it. And the fact that when you're mounted, you can actually attack your friends is actually hilarious. You can have little monster battles.
That was one of the first things that I did when the demo came out. I basically told a friend of mine, listen, we got to both mount one of these monsters and just have like fights. We got to do the Monster Hunter Fight Club. That was one of the first things that I did in the demo, and it was a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to duke it out like that. But for me, it's Yomogi.
Oh, okay. Oh, because of the power up, right?
What power? She does a power up?
Wait, am I getting this right? Yeah. Yomogi is the one that comes up on the guns,
with
right?
the machine cannon, yeah.
Yeah, but she also powers up the other guns if you're using like artillery cannons and stuff. I'm pretty certain.
Yeah, I believe you. I wasn't even sure of it. I just like Yomogi because she just comes up and she's like, she just like starts screaming in her little voice, and I was like, oh, this is the best thing ever. There's like the little kid who cooks me food is just sitting here with a cannon, just like firing at the monsters. That's friggin' amazing. Like I really love that. True.
You know what? Actually, thinking about that now, when I think back to like the trailer, because there's only like some monsters, some people that actually show up and help you out. Obviously, you got the twins and you got the other ones, but like I don't think he shows up. You know the little kid that's got the Charles Blade in his back?
He does show up.
Oh, does he?
Yes.
What does he do? Because I've never had him.
The thing is, the way that it works in Rampage, like we have a tendency to save the summons, right, for a really big thing. But the problem is that some summons will only last until the end of a horde. And Yori tends to show up in the early hordes, so you're not really thinking about using a summon, so a lot of times you might miss it. But he shows up, and what he does is basically like he's got a bunch of Palicos and Palamutes that do all kinds of stuff and just dish out a bunch of damage and add debuffs and whatnot. But yeah, he can duke it out with the rest of the summons. He's actually really good.
Okay, nice. I want them to add Hojo though. Where's I want Hojo to run down on his little Tetsukabra like Kaya.
That was exactly my thought. Like before the game came out, I kept thinking like, oh my god, we're gonna be able to summon Hojo. He's gonna be coming in riding the baby Tetsukabra. That's gonna be like the best thing ever. And then it didn't happen. Like what?
I know.
No beards, no Hojo running into rampages. I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed. You know,
I might sell my game. I might take it back for a refund.
0 out of 10. No Hojo and rampages.
Exactly. No Hojo, no beards. What have you done, Capcom?
Oh yeah, that was a little bit disappointing. But anyway, we know that this game has went through some troubled development with the data theft that Capcom had and COVID and all of this stuff. How do you feel about this? At least I think that this is the first Monster Hunter where essentially in the base game, before any of the free title content updates, you don't actually get to finish the story. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I mean, like, I'm of two minds. Like, because honestly, for me, for the longest time, for like Monster Hunter, I know it's had a story, but I don't really pay attention to the story in that respect. I guess I see it less from a narrative point of view. Like, it would be cool to know that, like, what I was able to do at the end of the game is like finish it so I can get to the final stuff. But I don't, specifically from a story point of view, I'm not really fussed about the story because I couldn't even tell you what the story is anyway. I mean, I know the basic flow of it, but so I do think, I mean, it is a little bit weird. I appreciate we're kind of, we're living in weird times right now, so like I'm not gonna hold it against them. And honestly, because of this is the thing, I know some people have sort of brought that up as like a gripe, and I mean it's fair. It's a fair thing to say. But I'm just like, it doesn't worry me because I know that Capcom are a studio that will always consistently support the game post-launch free anyway. So it's not like they were doing what, some studios might be like, oh, we had some trouble, so we're going to launch it, and then we'll sell you the final story later on. Like, Capcom is still going to give it to us. We just have to wait a little bit longer. And I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I'm still playing the game. I'm playing it every single day anyway. So the fact that we're going to get it and it will be part of the free updates, like, I don't mind. It's a little weird, but I'm not too fussed about it.
I just almost wish that they finished it in a way that it didn't leave you in kind of like with a feeling of a cliffhanger, that's the one thing that I wish that they had done. And then it's like, the rest of the stuff would almost feel like bonus. Whereas this way it kind of feels like, there was that additional thing. But ultimately, with COVID and the data theft situation that they had, I'm like, okay, I get it. You guys went through a lot and it's tough. And at the same time, I've already put like well over 200 hours into this game, so what the hell am I even complaining about it?
Exactly, right, and that's only going to get more. So like, that's the thing. I think ultimately, my stance on it would have been like a lot different if there was like a massive gap and it was like let's say if it's astronomical, they were like, oh, we're going to launch with only low rank, and I'd be like, okay, this is different, right? Then I would have been like, this is weird. But I was like, you know what? This is honestly, because for me, like, if you think back at it, like if you came in from World or some other things like that, but if you go back to like some of the earlier games, like Freedom Second and Freedom Unite, like you went to HR9, there was no Hunter rank like cap unlock. It was just HR9. You're done. That's G rank. Like that's you. So it's not to say that we want to be going backwards, but it's kind of more reminiscent to like a traditional older school Monster Hunter experience. So like I'm cool with it. Like as long as there's stuff to do. And the fact that also the first update they've spoken about is already coming in April, which, and the fact that we're halfway through April, so it's got to be some point in the next 2 weeks, means that we don't even have that long to wait. If they were like, oh, this update is coming in like September, then I'd be like, maybe it's a bit different. But, an update a month after the game's launched, I'm fine. So.
And finally, for my final question, what would be your weapon design for Monster Hunter?
Oh, okay.
If you could do whatever you wanted, what would be your weapon design? I want,
a pair of gauntlets, not like Tonfa's, like actual gloves, gauntlets that you wear. They would be an impact type weapon. So think of it like a boxer, right? I put them in the kind of medium speed category. They wouldn't be like dual blades fast. They wouldn't be like greatsword slow, but they would be like boxing gloves. So obviously your standard combos would just be like, you'd be punching the monster in the face. And obviously because they're impact type, you can literally just punch them and knock them out. But they would also have a charge component, so you could like charge a guard and you could go like counter guard. So basically like a boxing playstyle. But then you could have like a stronger punch, so you could actually charge it and just do like a longer sort of like dash towards the monster punch kind of thing. It would have like an inbuilt Shoryuken, and it would have a guard. So it would literally have like, you could just box a guard and stuff. So they would be like gauntlets and boxing gloves. It would be so cool.
That's pretty cool. That would be an interesting design. But yeah, that was pretty much it. I'm gonna let you go now because you have to go and create more Monster Hunter content for sure.
Yep.
There's gonna be links to everything Arekkz in the description of this video. Your next weapon is going to be what? The next guide you said? Charge Blade?
Possibly Charge Blade. Yeah, I'm kind of like working on that one, depending on which one I sort of finish first. But I think probably Charge Blade. Probably next week, I think.
You can look forward to seeing a proper Charge Blade tutorial with proper production value.
No, yours are great. I've been loving yours. Like I think it's I always find it really interesting to see how people approach like the same topic differently as well. So I really like it.
Oh, thank you very much. That's huge compliment. Thank you, I appreciate it. But that is going to be it. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit it up with a like button. If you did not enjoy the video, hit it with a dislike because feedback is important. See you all in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe. Peace out.
See you later.